Hello, everyone. Welcome to the DSDApp 3D implementation course. My name is Lindy. I'm the director of the DSDApp Academy, and I'm going to walk you through the new update of the app that incorporated the 3D design. So first, I'd like to thank you all that purchased the 3D pre-sales package. And as I said, this webinar is going to help us to share all the things that have changed and how the implementation, so how we incorporated the 3D in the app. So at the beginning, I'm going to start with a introduction of all components of the app, like all how we can use the app for like different moments of the treatment, just a review mostly for you guys that already are working with the app. But of course, always add something new. And towards the end, we're going to start with a step-by-step of the 3D design. We are going to have 2 webinars. So this introduction and the first part of 3D, and then a second one to finalize the design. So thank you all for being here with me. And let's get started. So the DSDApp has like importance in different stages of the dental treatment. It plays a role at the beginning, so it helps with the patient documentation, helps communicating with the patient in the lab when we do 2D simulations and we can design in 3D now and export these files to be printed for the mockup and to be continued in any CAD software to provide the final restoration. So we are in this moment where the app is like a bridge, right? It combines like documentation, communication, 3D design, and also guides the process in the CAD software to get the final restoration, like in a full digital restorative workflow. So here is an overview of everything that we believe the app is powerful and can help you in your practice in different stages of the patient treatment. I can't only talk about the 3D in this webinar because the app is much more than that. It's much more than a tool for 2D simulations and also much more than only 3D designs. So we're going to briefly review all of this for you guys that have watched already our implementation course during these past months. Many of the things you have seen, but I'm going to make sure for you that maybe are new or didn't haven't had the chance to watch the webinars. So I'll guide you and point in which webinars you should watch, right? To help like learning more about each step of the process. So we are going to start with the patient documentation. So one of the first challenges that we have on the first appointment is when we are digitalizing the patient. And we need to make sure that we don't forget to take important files, like so important photos, the scan, like all the patient records that we are looking for that case. And most importantly, how to standardize these protocols with our assistants or with our team, right? Many times this is very complicated. And today we have many different sources. So we have cameras, we have facial scanners, intraoral scanners, CBCT scans, like videos, charts, payroll charts, x-rays. I can name many of everything that we use for our to create the patient documentation, right? So to have a place like a system to bring all of these files together, it is a challenge. And the DSDApp helps us doing that. So we can import files from external sources as Dropbox, Box, Google Drive, and so on. But we can also take photos and videos using the app. So we can take advantage of the lines as a reference. So you can see in this video when we are selecting to take a video using the app, you have the circle and reference lines that help us with the angulation and the inclination while taking the photo. And we just saw the auto capture. So based on the facial recognition, the app auto captures a photo for you, so you don't need to click. So you don't miss like the moment of clicking on and tapping on the screen. We can also take advantage of having a video. So we take a video and with the app select frames for us. So we don't need to go in editor mode, like in our iPads, and look for the videos. We can just, by clicking there, we can select frames inside of the app. So for more information in how to take these photos using the app, how to add files for this from these external platforms, you can all find in webinar number 1. So you should have received an email with a link for all of our webinars. So at any time, you can catch up and watch them, and also share with your staff, right? It's very important that they engage with us as well. So number 2 is case management, right? Like documentation management. So as I mentioned, we have different types of files, and to store them is becoming very complicated. So using the app, using the DSD cloud, today we can save all of these files and access the files from anywhere. So you can access from your iPad and also from your iPhone. You can even select an option to save on the tablet for some cases and work offline. So let's say you were traveling, you were flying, and you want to use the time to plan a case, for example. You also have this option using the app. And most importantly, when you use the cloud, it doesn't use any space of your device. So you can plan or analyze the files anytime, anywhere. So when you create a case, you have the option to, as I mentioned, to save in the cloud or on the device. And here on the timeline, we have like we track like all entries. So everything you do for the case, every new file you save, any modifications you make, you will be saved on the history here. So you don't lose any of the files. And using the DSD cloud, it gives us the freedom, right, to access these files anytime, anywhere. So it makes the multidisciplinary treatment planning really happen, because how many times we are trying to plan a case, but we don't have the right file, or we are by communicating with our colleague or with another specialist that we work with, right, and we don't have the right file at the right time. So having these on in our finger tapes with our phones or in our iPads makes all of this connection in the case management much easier. Also, the DSD cloud helps us with the sharing, like in team communication, right? So you can export these files. So let's say for people that outside of the DSDApp community, we can export these files as a zip folder or a PDF. As I said, it's going to improve the treatment planning, right? Like the multidisciplinary treatment planning. We can also share with people inside of the community. So very easily, you can share the whole documentation of the patient with another user. And the user is going to receive everything. He's going to open, make changes, suggestions, like everything that he wants to add for the case, and send the case back to you. And the same thing for the lab, right? So instead of sharing via email, needing to upload the files and look for things in different places, you can share the whole documentation straight with the lab. If your lab uses the app or as a zip, for example, it depends on the case of how it works the best for you. But ideally, having the app, you can easily share and get the file back. Another important thing is the chat. So inside of the app, we have a chat, I would say like a WhatsApp group, right? So you can create case discussion groups, you can share photos and messages, and keep all the files for that patient stored in one place. So if you like more information about this, please check webinar number 3. And we are finalizing the corporate accounts. So it will be a great option for clinics that have more than one associate, or if you want to create a system for like different iPads, to have different iPads all connected. The app also improves the communication with the planning center. You can purchase products and share all these files through the app. So if you'd like more information about this connection, please check webinar number 3. And we also going to have a new product released by the Planning Center very soon, which is the Smile Express. It's basically one photo, one STL sent via app. The Planning Center in 48 hours is going to have the shells or the model delivered to your door for the patient mockup. So it is an interesting option for some cases that you decide not do your digital, your own like wax apps in the app, right? So you're gonna have both options. You can do yourself, or you'll also be able to send to the planning center. 2D is my simulation. I know the app got its popularity based on this, but it has 2 very important points related to it. So the first point is to communicate with the team, right? So you guide the treatment for the lab or a multidisciplinary treatment planning with more specialties. And it allows you to perform a facially driven SMILE design and analyze the case easily based on all the reference lines that guide the SMILE frame, right? That guide the DSD principles. And of course, it improves the communication with the patient and especially the motivation with the patient. So you change the way you do dentistry. Your patients perceive that you're providing a different type of treatment and more like aligned with the digital evolutions that we have today. And finally, the design in 3D, right? As I know you all are here for this. So I know it wasn't a super long introduction, but the DSDApp 3D, the main goal was it was created with the main goal to democratize digital planning and give you a intuitive and easy to use application with little investment. So you can perform your digital accepts in-house with full control in a short period of time. And basically, all it takes is the time from designing and the time from printing if you have a 3D printer in your office. And you can do same-day mockups. All the files from the DSDApp, they are open, so they can be continued in any CAD software. So as I said at the beginning, the app is really a bridge for a full digital dentistry, where we store since the beginning. So we store the files, we share these files properly, we motivate our patient, we create 2D simulations, we guide the treatment for like different specialties based on aesthetics, right, as in principles of DSD. Then we have the chance now to also design in 3D in the iPad and have these same files that we created adjusted, and later on will become the final restorations, right? So everything is guided and the same shapes you pick at the beginning, you're going to have precisely at the end. So it's basically like the copy and paste principles that Christian always shares at the DSD. So in order to make our understanding easier of the 3D, we broke down in 6 steps. And the most important thing we need to keep in mind when we start designing in 3D is that now we have 3 coordinates. We have the axis X, Y, and Z, right? So it's a little more complicated than designing in 2D. But what is very nice about the app is that it's much simpler and easier and intuitive than any other CAD software. So always keep in mind that now we have 2D photos and 3D objects. So these 3D objects are a facial scan and an intraoral scan. And the type of file that these 3D objects use is called STL. So it's like the same when you have a 2D photo and we use like a JPEG format. STL is a format of a 3D file. So our goal is to combine these files to create a 3D patient. One important thing, I'm going to start with this brief presentation just to give you an overview of everything we are going to talk about. And then we're going to jump, I'm going to share my iPad screen with you, and we are going to do together a step-by-step, okay? So don't worry, this is not the only thing we are showing about the app in 3D. We're going to have a step-by-step how to use it, okay? So step number 1 is calibration. And this calibration starts with the STL, okay? And as I said, the STL is the 3D file, the type of file. And depending on the intraoral scanner you have, the position of this 3D object will be different, considering the 3D axis. So the first thing we need to do is when we insert the photo, we need to calibrate this STL. So we need to tell the app where is the midline, where is the incisal edge, where is the back of the model. So the app reorients the model, and it makes like easier for you to do to match the photos with the STL. Okay. We are going to see also step by step in how to do this. Still in calibration. So with the STL calibrated, now we need to bring this STL to each step in which one of the photos. So we're going to go in frontal, and we are going to calibrate that STL to match exactly the size and the position of that photo. We also will do the same for the 12 o'clock picture, and also for the profile photo. Okay, so we are going to see in a few how to do that. But that's the first step you need to keep in mind. It's going to be calibration. If you are using a facial scan, now is also the moment that we are going to bring this STL and calibrate also the facial scan with the photo. As this is the first training of the 3D, we're going to make it more simple. So we are only going to use the photos and the STL of the intraoral scan. But we are preparing more advanced webinars for January with using a facial scan that also will teach you how to calibrate and do the design using a facial scan. Step number 2 is the smile frame. So these are the concepts of DSD, right? We use the smile frame, all the lines based on the face as a reference to guide our design. And the same is going to happen for the 3D. So every time that we are doing any 3D design, we use these lines as a reference. So it always starts with a 2D planning. So if we also have a webinar on smile frame or the whole principles of smile design. So if you are interested in learn more about this, please check webinar number 2. So step number 3 is a 3D design. So you're going to have these 4 views screen that will allow you to position the new design that is like white here in this photo over analyzing the different views. Okay, this last one on the bottom right is a dynamic view, so it moves, so you can zoom in and out. So we are going to see how we do all of these for our cases. One important thing that I wanted to share with you before we do designs is that we can create different types of STL for various moments of treatment. And I want to clarify the difference to help you to choose when you are designing. So we always start with ideal pre-treatment. So it's the ideal position of the teeth based on the face. It helps us visualize better and see discrepancies or challenges that the case may have. Depending on the case, it will also work as a motivational design for the mockup. But sometimes, like we can see on this example, if you look here on the first design, right, the ideal design, we can see that the right lateral is more buccal position, right? So it means that for us, in order to keep that ideal design, we're going to need to prep more these teeth. So if I want to do a mock-up for this patient, I'm going to need to adapt and modify this design into an adapted file. So I can place this over the patient's teeth without touching it, right? Without prepping or anything. So you can see here from the occlusal view, can you see that the designer brought these teeth? I mean, he did a little bit of everything. It's complicated sometimes to move only one tooth. Sometimes we need to bring some of them a little bit more buccal to adapt the design and allow a motivational mock-up to happen. Sometimes, if it's an additive case, these files will be the same one. Okay, so keep this in mind when we are designing. And the ideal is going to give us the ideal, right? Like the ideal design is going to help and guide us on what is needed for that case. We also have the ideal design post-treatment. So in this design, we can digitally prep the model and move the design to the actual, like the right position, like the final position. Okay. This model can be used as a provisional, and it will also be a guide for the CAD design. So reviewing all of these files. The first, the motivational, we use for the motivational mockup, right? Very easily. And this is something we can do very easily and very fast in the app. The ideal design, which is how, like when we start, right, is going to be, we can use as a prep, like a reduction guide, and also helps us to visualize the planning, as I said. So depending on the case, it really helps us to see which areas we need to prep more or less teeth to provide a more like minimal invasive dentistry. And ideal post-treatment, we can use for immediate provisionals and to guide the CAD/CAM restorations. So always keep in mind the difference between the motivational mockup and the ideal design. Sometimes they can be similar, sometimes they can be the same, or in most of the times you're going to need to adjust. And I'm going to show you also how we do these adjustments and these changes all using the app. So here you can easily see, so this was a planning. We started with the ideal for the patient, and then we just adapted to a motivational. The SCULPT tool is gonna also allows us to do that. So here's just an example. See, we are erasing the occlusal areas. So you can adjust the design. So we remove the occlusal interferences for the model. So this one is ideal, can be used as a prep guide, for example, right? Here you can see you can adjust completely the design, you can adjust the gum line, you can raise, you can completely change the position of the design and adapt with the SCULPT tool. We can also use this tool to adapt the design. So we save that case, we come back, and then we bring all the teeth maybe a little bit out. And here you can see in this video that we are adding in some areas or like extending to be a motivational model, a motivational file for the mockup. So all of these changes are very easy and to do in the app. Of course, there is a learning curve when you are planning in 3D. And first time will be a little harder. I'm not gonna lie to you, it's gonna take longer, but as more you practice, after a few cases, you're gonna feel much more comfortable with the controls of the app and will perform designs very fast. We can do usually in like 30 minutes. Depending on the case, if we do less teeth, you can do even faster. So it can be adapted for any case. Step number 5 will be export the STL and save the case when we finish. One very important thing here, all our Gold users can design in 3D, included on the subscription, right? So we were able to design in 2D and now in 3D. However, every time that you save the case in 3D or you export in STL, you are going to have a fee. And this fee is $150 per case. So you can save different versions. You can export as many STLs as you wish. You're going to pay only per case. This payment is done upfront. So you purchase in our website a package of 3D cases. And then every time you save a case or you export, it depends which one you do first, right? It's going to count as one export. So for you that purchased the pre-sales offer, you have 10 cases or like 10 exports included. So make sure when you enable this in your iPad, that in your app, that when you design the case, you can start trying, maybe using the Try Me version. I'm going to show you how to get there so you can practice many times before. Or if you want to practice in your own patients, you just remember, like you don't save or don't export, so it's not going to count from your 10 exports included. Okay, so keep this in mind. So I would always say first try it before you export, so it saves you the money from the fee from that. Okay. Step number 6 is 3D printing. So the type of 3D printing we mostly use in dentistry is stereolithography. Is well known as SLA. Is a type of additive 3D printing. So it uses a resin, like a liquid resin, that a light from inside of the 3D printer is going to hit this uncured resin and is going to cure in layers, building our object. So this is how basically all 3D printing in dentistry happen. Like layer by layer, it starts building the model. Once we print, we have some post-processing steps, like we wash in alcohol baths. We light cure to make sure that there is no uncured resin. We clean the model and we remove all of the supports from the printer. So the 3D market, the 3D printing market have grown a lot lately. That you can find different and very affordable options to print in-house. So you can deliver same-day mockups using DSDApp. And if you think that your patient can come for the first consultation, you can take all records and then you tell your patient maybe go for like a coffee or go for like shopping or for a walk or go even back to work, right? Depending on how close the patient is to you. Then you can have your team working on the case, designing in 3D, printing the model, post-processing, creating a silicon guide, and then you can perform a mock-up on the same day. So that's a very really powerful thing that the app can provide us, and it differentiates for everything that already exists. And the last but not least is the patient communication. So the app, as you know, helps us creating before and after photos and videos to motivate our patient. And also we can create a presentation inside of the app, like an emotional presentation to after the mock-up, right? Like to present the case to our patients. So we can do all of this inside of the app. We also have webinars showing and demonstrating how to do this. So if you'd like to learn more, check webinar number 4. So now, before we jump to my iPad screen sharing, I want you to keep this very clear in mind. So all the steps that we're going to do right now, they start with calibration, smile frame, 3D design, sculpt tool, and then export and save. Okay, so let me just switch here to my iPad screen. There you go. And then we're going to start the design. So what have changed, if you go in menu, now the only thing changed in there is the try me for the 3D. So let's say you want to try the case we have here available. You click in try me. You're going to have all the files here available. And then you just click try me and you start your 3D design. If you want to do your own cases, you are going to go to new case. And you're going to have here, I had one case open, so we just close. So every time you have a case open, the app is going to ask you, do you want to save or continue the case? So in this case, I just closed to show to you. So when you click in new case, you have the same options as before. So we can do patient documentation, 2D analysis, smile simulation, and now we can do a 3D smile simulation. So when you click here, it's going to take us to this page to add the files, right? So you can take the files with the app. You can add these files from any platform that you use. I'm here using Box, just where I have my files stored. But you're going to bring one by one. So any type of file, the process is still the same way. We click on the plus, we find the files, and we click. And now the STL. So as I said, we're not gonna do with the facial scan this time. So we're gonna start with a more simple way, and then later on we're gonna have another webinar just showing how to do the calibration with the facial scan. It is not hard to do, right? It's just like for like time-wise for our training, we're gonna do a more simpler a simple one. So when you add the STL, it's gonna open this page. So the first thing you need to do is we're gonna turn on flip, and we are going to rotate this STL until we are facing occlusal view. Now I'm gonna move the arrows to the side because I want the vertical reference line, that is the midline, to be on the midline of the model. And I'm gonna, with these sliders, move to the top, front and to the back of the model. So I'm pretty much saying the app that here's my midline, here's the front of my model, and here's the back. Another thing that we are going to do, can you all see at the bottom left, we have an STL 3D pivot switch. Now we're going to move to 3D pivot. And once you do that, you're going to see another green circle on the screen. And now this screen becomes dynamic, so we can move it around by holding our fingers in there. And the goal here is to have this green circle in the middle of the model. Something like that. Okay, that's our goal. And then when you click in angle, we should see the model from the frontal view. Here, if you want, you can also change the brightness of the STL or the contrast. So depending on the case, depending on the type of scanner you have, you need to make some adjustments here. We can also do that. And you save. Okay. So now STL is calibrated. We have all the photos that we need. And now we're going to move for the calibration process. So clicking on the forward arrow, as you are doing already a 2D simulation, is the same process. You are familiar with this. So we just position the targets and the pupils on the commissures of the patients, and we click in calibrate rotation. We analyze, we take a look. Her commissures are a little bit different heights, so I can correct manually if I want. And I'm going to determine the midline position. Okay. So looking to her midline, her nose is a little bit off, so I'm going to keep looking to her face as a whole, like the forehead, the chin, to determine my midline. Now I click on STL. So the lower bar is our guidance. So we were in calibrate, now we're going to move to STL. And when we move to STL, now is the moment that we remove the opacity of the STL, and I have picture selected. So my picture here is red, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to position the reference vertical lines on the distal of the centros and the incisal line as well. Now I'm going to click on the STL, and I'm going to bring a little bit more, increase the opacity so I can see the STL file. And of course, this STL is too big for the photo. So I'm going to reduce the size of the STL until it fits on those vertical reference lines. So I know my width is correct. Now I'm going to move the STL up, and I'm going to tilt a little bit down and move down until I find that they match. Okay, so clearly now I see that one side is higher than the other. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on these arrows in the middle, and I'm going to check. So I take a look at the cervical areas to see if I see is matching the incisal edge, and I think I'm pretty good. Okay, if you have a facial scan, you're going to click here on the facial scan. It's going to open. You're also going to calibrate the same way using the reference lines. Okay. So the first time you do, getting used with the controls, which arrow does what, it takes a little bit. So play with it, exaggerate, try, so you're going to get used very easily. Now we click in Mark Lip. I'm going to decrease the opacity of the model, and I'm going to contour the lip exactly in the same way we have been doing for the 2D. So you notice everything that we are doing follows the same ideas of calibration that we were doing before. So I bring the model. I need to make sure the STL is inside of the selection. So depending on the angulation of the patient's model, we need to bring this a little bit up. Okay. Now I go in measurement. So this step is also important in the app to have like real measurements when you are designing. So measure the width between the two centrals, like distal of distal. I always like to measure the papilla height, so it's easy to reproduce. So measure in the patient's mouth and type here the right width, right, the measurement. And then we move forward by clicking at the arrow. Now we're going to have a 12 o'clock and exactly the same idea. So we start positioning the targets, the pupils, and here's the vermilion. So I'm going to move my reference lines to the pupils and commissuras. I'm going to click in rotate, and I'm going to click in auto calibrate. So this will help first like a rough calibration, right? Okay, it turned a little bit off, no problem. I can move to the sides and see. So now exactly the same width of the centros that I did from the first photo, I need to match here on the second photo, right? So they're pretty good. I can come here on the pupils. I can also rotate to make it even on the face if I need. I can move a little bit more to the side, and that's it. Okay, so first step, position the targets, auto calibrate. If you need to adjust to the lines, then you use the arrows at the bottom, move to the sides, move up, you can move down, something like that. See. And now we are going, if you need also, you can use the zoom, so you can zoom in or out. And now when we go in calibrate, we have here the picture. I think it looks pretty good. I'm going to click on the STL. And now I'm able to move only the STL. If I have the picture, I can move the picture. Okay, so I'm going to click on the STL. I'm going to move it down a little bit. And I'm going to tilt. So I'm going to move until I think it matches better. Okay, so I think it's good. Still, I can see a little discrepancy is not matching 100% on the right side. So I'm going to adjust, move this rotation a little bit. Now it's looking better. Let me try to rotate a little bit more. So here is basically, you need to find the best you can to match. Always remember, 2D photos will have some sort of discrepancy. So depending if you took the photo with the iPhone or the camera, how close you were to the patient. So all of these things that we spoke about on the webinar number 1, they're very important here, because we are matching a 3D file, like a 3D object, to a 3D photo, right? So always keep that in mind. Try the best as you can to match, but especially in the front, because we see with the 2D photos, we get some distortion from the back. Okay, so now we go to the lip curve. So this line is gonna help if we click and we turn the lip curve on, we're gonna see these targets, so we can individually change them. Now they are moving symmetrically. So if I want, I can turn the symmetric curve off and I can move them individually. So depending on the case, that's very useful. So if I turn off, it means I can move only one side. So this is very important as a reference for us to see how buccal we can go. So I would position this line where the wet and dry line of the lower lip is. So we know that we cannot move this new design and push it over this line. So the teeth is going to be too out. I can clearly see already that her left canine is a little more out, right? So it starts, the lines help me to evaluate the case. So now I go in mark lip. I'm going to reduce the opacity. And I'm going to contour the lip exactly in the same way, same principles. Now I bring the STL and see. So this cannot happen. I always need to make sure the whole STL is inside of the selection, and that's it. Okay. Now we're going to move to the profile photo, following the same principles. We have rotate. So if we think the patient is not in natural hair position, we can correct that. We click on calibrate. So first I'm going to reduce the opacity of the STL because I want to work on the photo first. I have picture here selected. So I'm going to zoom in to make it bigger. And how do I know how big I should make this photo? So we bring the opacity of the STL a little bit, and the size of the STL that is going to dictate the size of the picture. So I think I'm pretty good here to start checking the size of the canine. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to move those vertical lines. If you click on them, they move. So I'm going to move one here on the frontal. So they're going to help me as a reference for the superimposition. So I bring the opacity of the STL a little bit. Now I click on the STL because I want to change the STL file. So see that I cannot make it bigger or smaller anymore because we calibrated in the first photo. So once we do that there, we cannot change. At any time, you can go back. So just click on the back arrow and move back to the design. Something else that you have here, we have in all the screens, we have this zoom. So it helps you to visualize. So click on the plus, there was 2 times. So you take advantage of it. And now remove this STL to match the photo. As more we see from the patient's back teeth, the better. So in this case, I don't see her premolars, makes this a little harder. So also what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this angulation a little bit. Maybe my photo can be a little bit bigger, right? So I check the cervical. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to click in picture. And I'm going to make a little bigger again. how much bigger until I think it matches. Maybe a little more. So I'm moving the picture now. I'm just using the STL as a reference. Okay, I'm gonna go back to the STL. I'm gonna click to zoom in on the top, and I'm gonna move until I think it matches. Okay, so once that is done, I also calibrated on the profile view. Now we go to mark the lip. Same process, remove the opacity of the STL. Move these targets contouring the lip. And now, once the lip here is well contoured, we bring the opacity of the STL and we make sure everything is inside of the selection. So see, we are following exactly the same for each one of the views. So now, the only view that is missing is the occlusal view. And of course, we don't have an occlusal photo, but it's okay because we have much more information. We have a STL file. So we're gonna move so I can change the angulation to make more occlusal. Can move to the sides. I'm gonna move a little bit up and position this slider in the incisal edge position. Now I click on occlusal curve at the bottom, and you're going to see these targets. So this will help us as a reference to bring the new teeth shape. So this curve, symmetric curve is on, so you can see the difference. So it's gonna move the lines accordingly. So I will turn it off so I can move individually both sides if I want. So I'm gonna position these lines on the buccal cuspids of the premolars and molars, the cuspid of the canine, and the incisal line, incisal edge of the anteriors. Now I'm going to go and calibrate STL. So I'm going to click on the tooth, and using this red arrow, I click on the arrow and slide back, and on the blue one to the sides. So I'm going to select the premolar now, and I'm going to use the arrow, yellow, a red arrow, and blue. First premolar. I can move rotation also if I want. So basically here I am calibrating the new shapes of the design. So this is just a first reference. I like to start, there's no rule, like here on the side there is a little bit more to the back. I'm going to go with the centros. Hold always on the arrow, otherwise it's not going to move. Second premolar as well. There we go. Move forward, click proceed, and now it's gonna take us to the smile frame. So what I'm gonna do now, I'm gonna finish the first webinar here, and then we're gonna continue on the second webinar, finalizing the smile design and the 3D design. Okay, thank you all for watching, and see you on the second one.